If you took all of the things on your baby registry list and added them up, how much money would it amount to? Do you have a baby registry filled with items that people in your life have told you you need? Once all of this stuff comes into your house, is your house just going to be filled with baby items for a human being that really mostly just needs to be close to their parents, to feed, to have a safe place to sleep, and to have diapers changed regularly? So if you have been obsessing over your baby registry, getting everything ready for your sprinkle or your baby shower or just for that time when your baby comes, I have a real treat. I've invited friend, colleague, former client, founder of Empowered Birth Coaching and Registry Rehab on for the next 12 days. Her name is Lisa. She's amazing. She has lots of evidence-based information, and we're going to put our two brains together for 12 days in a row until December 24th to give you amazing information about how to best prepare for your baby and the items that you are combing through for that baby registry. And we hope to help you to recognize that what you need on your baby registry is support. What you need is to set yourself up to reach out to the people who are going to be most helpful to you once you have that baby in your arms. So welcome to the Milk Making Minutes 12 Days of Postpartum Christmas. I'm your host, Lo Nigrosh, IBCLC and Childbirth Educator, on a mission to uncover the barriers that make breastfeeding so difficult. Okay,
Right.
So I'm back with Lisa, and today on our 12 Days of Milk Making Minutes Christmas, we are going to talk about bottles. I think bottles and pumping really go hand in hand, and everybody wants bottles, especially if they are going to be going back to work or exclusively pumping. But there is such a wide variety of bottle choices, and there is very aggressive bottle marketing.
Oh, yes.
I know this is a passion of yours. So tell me what you see in this department.
Yeah, I see a lot of variation in this department, and that bothers me because I get the benefit of the big box companies sending you like a spattering of 15 different bottles and 15 different nipples. But the truth of the matter is, there is science. And I know Lo will have a lot to say about the proper type of nipple and what shape we're looking for. And that's what I want parents to know. I want them to know exactly which nipples and bottles are going to help with the musculature of their baby's mouth and development and motor skills and all of these important things that I did not know because I followed what the advertising was telling me.
Yeah, that's so critical. Yeah, so any bottle that is claiming to work like a breast or that looks like a breast is not a bottle you want. And when I say this, I am meaning that these bottles do not support oral motor development, and they do not support your baby's ability to latch, because the shape and flexibility of silicone is very different than the shape, texture, flexibility of the human body. And if it is breast shaped, that means that the baby cannot get a nice wide latch with lots of the nipple inside of their mouth. They're going to end up just on the very tip of that bottle. And they are not going to be able to have that proper musculature development to increase their oral motor strength, which leads to better eating, better speech, better airway health. So even if you are never planning on breastfeeding, or even if breastfeeding doesn't work out, we want to make sure that we have bottles that are supporting your infant for that correct motor development.
Yeah, I'm really passionate about the bottle topic because I dealt with bottle refusal and it did make for
Mm.
a very stressful postpartum. And I don't want that for anyone else. And there's a lot that goes into bottle feeding. Paced bottle feeding is something that I had never even heard of until I met with an IBCLC, and that needs to be at the forefront of our education to make bottle feeding successful.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah, so tell me a little bit, and people can go back and listen to your episode, but tell me a little bit about what bottles you tried, with when your son was experiencing bottle refusal,
Yeah.
and, what you noticed about what bottles he was able to do some feeding from, and what bottles he wasn't able to feed from.
Yeah, so I bought every single breast-like advertised bottle on the market, and
Mm.
I was very concerned about the transition from bottle to breast, which I later learned there's something to be said about what's underlying there, but that correct me if I'm wrong, Lo, if you're breastfeeding from the body or chest feeding from the body, your baby is going to continue to do that unless there's something else underlying. And I was so fearful that the bottle was going to be preferred that we waited very long to even start introducing a bottle. So I think
Mm.
again, having the prenatal education of when is a good time to start that, what are we looking for if we're running into issues? So I tried the Como Tomo, which is like my least favorite bottle out there. Very short, stocky nipple, advertised up and down as being one of the best for breastfed babies, which, as you just pointed out, is not the case. Um, I've tried the MAM. Again, anything that had been advertised, anti-colic, orthodontic, all of those marketing buzzwords sucked me in. I bought them all regardless of price. Many were overpriced. Um, and and we didn't have success with any of those. Uh,
Did you try any nipples that were more gradually sloped?
I did. I
Okay.
tried the
Okay.
Dr. Brown.
Mhm.
I tried the I might have bought every bottle that's ever been made. And I won't bore anyone here with the story, but if you do end up listening to that episode that we recorded once before, we now are making guesses that there were oral ties that had been missed, and that's a whole different topic. But so I want people to know to put these gradual slope nipples, these bottles that will encourage all of those things that you described because it's important.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, a great reminder is people do get very worried about bottle refusal. They also get worried about breast refusal and this idea of nipple confusion. And nipple confusion is not really a thing as we think of it. Um, it becomes a matter of 2 things. 1, flow preference. So if you aren't using paste bottle feeding and baby is taking in a lot of milk really fast, then they might prefer that. But usually if a baby develops a flow preference for a bottle, that is because they have their oral motor development is not where it needs to be, whether that is because of ties or because they have their gag reflex is not as easily stimulated, or their gag reflex could be overstimulated, or their suck reflex could be understimulated. There are lots of things that an oral motor assessment can tell us about why a baby is either refusing the bottle or preferring the bottle. Babies evolved to want to suckle on breasts and feed themselves from the breast. So if they are not doing that, there is a reason. And your pediatrician is not going to be able to tell you. And even some IBCLCs are not going to be able to tell you. You really need to talk to whatever professional you're trying to get help from to see what do you know about this topic, what do you know about oral motor development, and what can we do to remedy this situation. And I will say this is so challenging because there are no easy fixes. It does take work to help a baby to get the proper oral motor development if there's either a breast refusal or a bottle refusal.
Yeah, it's stressful. Also, I have a problem with new companies like the Emulate, where it's $30 a bottle. I'm
Mhm.
sorry, but that is not necessary. And that's
Mhm.
not to knock anyone that chooses to buy a bottle like that. But that nipple is, again, one of those breast like nipples.
Right.
And so it's like on top of the advertising kind of misleading new parents that are building registries, and then to have that added expense, that just feels very icky to me. And I like to make it known that you don't have to spend $30 on a bottle to have a
Right.
successful bottle experience.
And usually you're not just buying one. You might
Right.
buy one to try it out, but then if for some reason your baby prefers that bottle, then you need like 4 or 5, so that is an added expense. That could be a whole, week's worth of meals for your family if you're getting quite a few.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and if I had not purchased every bottle under the sun to try and instead
Mm,
taken that money to get the support to maybe reevaluate things like oral ties and talk through all of the troubleshooting like you just alluded to, those dollars would have been better utilized,
mhm.
really hiring an IBCLC for help.
Yes, and I won't go too far into it because I have a whole episode about, tethered oral ties, but if somebody is telling you that you have a small tie or that the tie that they see in your baby's mouth is insignificant,
Borderline.
borderline, that is not how we assess for ties. It is a functional assessment. So that means we cannot just look at a baby's mouth and say whether or not the tie is interfering with feeding. We
Yeah.
actually have to do a full oral motor assessment and identify what is happening with the parent who is feeding, what is happening with the baby before and after feeding, what is happening during the feeding. And so it is not just a matter of looking in the baby's mouth. So if you have been told that and you're thinking, well, that can't be the case because I was told I have a marginal tie or my baby has a marginal tie, you probably need to go see somebody else who knows more about ties.
Yeah, and I won't go down a rabbit hole either, but as a pregnancy coach, this is a good lesson in advocating for yourself and listening to that
Mm,
intuition because maybe you need a second opinion. If someone told me, a feeding professional told me that the ties were insignificant,
mm,
but we continued to struggle with bottle feeding and a number of other things on the journey. And so I think like listening to that gut instinct of like something is still off. I'm not sure what
mm.
it is, but I'm going to get another opinion. I'm going to go to the experts because even though I love my pediatrician, they don't have the medical education on breastfeeding specifically that an IBCLC does.
Yes, and if you're interested in this, Dr. Jack Newman has an amazing book. I'll have it linked in the show notes. It's called What Doctors Don't Know About Breastfeeding. He is a doctor and an IBCLC. He runs a very famous breastfeeding clinic out of Canada. Um, uh, yeah, What Doctors Don't Know About Breastfeeding. Dr. Jack Newman and Andrea Polokova. So it's a really great book. I have it right here. So if anyone's interested in learning a little bit more about why your pediatrician can't help with these sorts of things, you can check that out.
Yeah.
Okay. So, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that I don't think a lot of people recognize that an IBCLC is great to help with bottles. Like, that's
Mm,
you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think that light bulb went off in my head to call an IBCLC when I was struggling with bottle refusal because I, for whatever reason, like back then had little knowledge. I obviously am in a different place now, but that is who you would call for pumping help. That is who you would call for bottle help. That is who you're
mm-hmm,
going to call. So I just want new parents to know that when I push to have feeding support and services on their registry, it's because they can help with so many things. It's not just an initial consultation. That's not,
mm-hmm,
there's a lot weaning. I could list on and on. So that's why
mm-hmm.
those funds are really, really helpful.
Right. And of course, it needs to be the right IBCLC. So interview your IBCLC just like you do any other provider, because if you're feeling pressure to only breastfeed, or they are telling you exclusive pumping isn't possible, or it's harder, or if they're not willing to help you with bottle feeding, then obviously they don't have the education for that topic that another IBCLC might have. And many IBCLCs do great work virtually, so you can find somebody who does, or there are other professionals who could have focused on breastfeeding and infant feeding, like OTs who have a breastfeeding focus, or SLPs who have a breastfeeding focus. So it does not have to be just an IBCLC if you are looking at bottle feeding. It could be a knowledgeable IBCLC or another professional who's really going to help you support whatever your goals are when it comes to feeding your baby.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks so much for talking to me about bottles.
Thank you.
Have you seen how many bottles are out there? Are you feeling really confused about how to make these choices for yourself? Go to my website, www.quavinbirthservices.com. Go to courses. Sign up for my childbirth education course for a great postpartum. Right now, this course is 50% off. It's for you and your partner. It is 4 weeks in a row. It will be live and virtual, but if you're not available for the in-person time, you can see the recording later, and there will be a built-in community. This is the place where you are really going to be thinking about how to prepare during pregnancy and childbirth for a postpartum period you can feel really good about. Can't wait to see your name pop up in my inbox.